Good morning and welcome to another beautiful day in Port Angeles. And again, certainly it is. Seahawks roll on. Weather is outstanding. We heard many things are happening down at the waterfront and in town. We're also wondering what's happening with the school board. Now, before we start the introduction, I want the members and guests to know that yesterday I received a message. The message was that Marty, the other candidate for the school board, said that he had an obligation and couldn't make it. However, we still believe as an organization how important the school system is, what it does for business. We still want to hear from the candidates are here. We want them to answer questions. On top of that, I think that we can take this opportunity to not only listen to what Lonnie Linn has to say, ask some questions, but maybe get into a bigger discussion, if time allows, on the issues of funding and the bonding issues, civic field, enrollment classes, etc. So with that, we'll bring up Lonnie Linn, who is the incumbent in this race. He has 5 minutes for introductions and up to 7 to continue on, and then we'll go to questions and we'll play it from there. But again, certainly let's take this opportunity, I hate to say it, to drill a current school board member on the conditions of Port Angeles School District. With that, Lonnie Linn, welcome.
I thought you would.
Go Builders.
It used to being drilled. It's all right. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I came onto the school board in 2008. I was blackmailed by Charlie McClain to run. It was not something that was high on my radar to do. Charlie said he wanted to retire and he needed to find his own replacement, and Charlie picked me. I ran unopposed in 2008, found out that I genuinely liked the work. I liked what we were doing. I liked the direction that being able to set the tone and the direction for our schools. So when 2012 came around, I ran again. And fortunately, nobody ran against me again, so I got to be another 4 years. This year is the very first year I've ever had to make a campaign speech, which I have to tell you is a little nerve-wracking, because the political process is not something I'm really excited about. But what this campaign has made me do is to go back and look at the accomplishments that we've made over the last 8 years, and to really analyze where we're going to be going in the next 4 years. We've made huge strides in the Port Angeles School District in the last 8 years. In the last 8 years, we went from a very dysfunctional school district with a graduation rate of 61% to a very functional and cohesive group of individuals working for one common goal of educating our students, to a graduation rate of about 82%. It's a phenomenal rate increase. We've successfully implemented TPIP, the teacher principal evaluation system. Not only did we implement it correctly, we've actually set the model for the state of Washington. People come to us to learn how to set it and get it to work, and it's working very well. We've implemented RTI, which is an early intervention program for elementary students in reading and mathematics, so that we know which students need the most help, and they get it. We currently, a year and a half ago, introduced PABA, which is a positive behavioral intervention system. I keep all the acronyms that drive you crazy in education. And this is a whole new process to how we discipline students in a class. Instead of suspending them, we work with them, we counsel with them, we make them understand why their behavior is wrong, and then we reinforce good behavior. And we're having real success with that one right now. One of the biggest accomplishments the current setting board did is we put counselors back in all the elementary schools. For you that have kids in elementaries, you know that the elementary peer pressure is immense, and a lot of kids don't handle it well. They need a place to go and a place to talk. And we put some very good counselors in our elementary schools, and they're doing a bang-up job. Just 3 or 4 meetings ago, we authorized the hiring of 2 drug and alcohol counselors. Many of you know, and I'm sure most of you are aware, the drug problem in Port Angeles is ridiculously high. The new influx of black tar heroin is becoming a huge, huge problem. And we need to be able to combat that with our kids in an early time. Let's see, what else have we done? Money. We've done a lot of things with money. Port Angeles, the school district has the largest budget next to, I think, the hospital has one slightly larger than it. Our budget each year is about $47 million. 88% of that money goes directly into the classroom. The rest goes to transportation, food services, and administration. There's an itemized breakdown on our website. You're all welcome to look. And on December 14th of this year, Port Angeles School District will become the first district in the state of Washington to be totally debt-free. We will not owe 1 cent on a levy, a bond, a bus, a table, a chair, anything. We will be completely debt-free, which is a major accomplishment for you. The current setting board 3 or 4 years ago refinanced the bonds. We spent $40,000 of your money to refinance the bonds to cut the interest rate. Our $40,000 returns you $251,000 in savings, just in the interest, and that's why we're going to be debt-free earlier. We've done a lot of great things. I mean, we've moved forward, and we continue to move forward. We have a lot of things coming up that we got to deal with. We have to deal with the 104 homeless kids that we have. We have to deal with the opportunity gap where we have some kids that have all of the resources they need to succeed and some that have none. Those are things that we're going to have to look at. We're going to have to look at facilities. Our buildings are old. They're falling apart. You know, the next board's going to have to come to you for more money. They're going to have to replace some schools. They don't have a choice. If we don't do that, the state's going to eventually condemn them, and then there's no contingency plan for having a school condemned right now, at least none that I know of. We have to do a lot more in our schools about our bullying situation and discrimination situation. Most people want to stick their head in the sand and say it doesn't happen, but it does. Cyberbullying is a whole new craze. There's no cut and dried answer, and if anybody has a cut and dried answer for how to fix this, please tell me. I'll battle it every day. We have things coming down the pike that are being legislated to us that probably will disenfranchise more children than anything that's ever happened to education. In 2019, we're going to have Core 24, where it takes 24 credits to graduate from high school. The State Board of Education has deemed that essential for kids to get into college and do other things. The problem with it is the way the crediting is going to be done. And I'm just going to run through this really quick so you have an idea. In 2019, you're going to have 4 credits of English, 3 credits of math, 3 credits of science, 3 credits of social studies, 2 credits in art, 2 credits in health, 1 credit in CT&E, which is vocational, and you're going to be allowed 4 electives, and you have to have 2 years of world language. Now, these are kids that are freshmen now that are going to be forced to do this. At any point in time, if they fail 1 class, or they don't finish a class, or they get sick and they can't get credit for a class, they can't graduate. The State Board of Education passed these rules, and out of their own mouth came 50% of our students will not graduate on time because of this rule. Their answer, a 6th period or another period in the day, and summer school. Folks, that is not the proper answer. We're going to take our most vulnerable kids, our kids that want to work with their hands in the vocational trades, and tell them they can't do that because they need a math credit. They can't take woodworking. Or they need a science credit. They can't go to the machine shop and make instruments for third world countries to use in operating rooms. We're going to disenfranchise a huge portion of our students. Currently, the board, the setting board, has already started a process to try to mediate that. We've created cross-crediting classes in our vocational program where if you take a a wood shop class with Tim Branham at the high school. You not only get a credit for your wood shop, you get a half a credit of math. We have at the skill center, if you take the cosmetology program or you take the culinary arts program, you can get a half a credit of science. We're trying to set these things up so that kids can have a fighting chance of staying in school and doing why they go to school. That's huge portions of our kids go to school because of the electives. They go to school because they want to go to an NJROTC meeting, or they want to be in band, or they want to be in the DECA club, or they want to be in Tim Branham's carpentry class. We cannot disenfranchise that whole population of people because the State Board of Education does something stupid. We have to figure out a way to mediate that. The setting board right now is working on that. We've worked on it very hard. There are currently statewide 7 cross-crediting programs available for half credits in math, science, social studies, and English. 6 of the 7 were written by the staff of Port Angeles High School and are now accepted state law. The 7th one was written by Tumwater, and it's done in 33 languages. So, because they have 107 languages and they only wrote 33. So there's a vast array of problems coming at us, and we deal with them as they come. Most of them are legislated to us. Most of them are unfunded, so we have to scramble to find money to do them. I guess that's my opening, probably more than 7 minutes.
That's okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, I was going to say, for a first-time campaign speech, not very bad. Let's give Lonnie a personal round. And now the fun part comes. Stay up there at the microphone.
I'm actually, I have to tell you, I'm a little interested in the questions, because I did the forum yesterday, or Sunday, down for the League of Women Voters, and that was the first time that I've ever stood in front of the public and actually answered questions. I'll tell you what happened to us this year with McCleary. This year, the Port Angeles School District received $2.7 million more in funding than we had the previous year, which on the surface sounds absolutely fantastic. But the legislature gave everybody a 3% raise. So that took $600,000 of our 2.7. Then they changed the allocation factors for retirement. They upped our percentage by $1 million. So now they got $1.6 million back out of their 2.7. Then they changed the healthcare system again and raised our percentage of the healthcare system, which cost us another $900,000. So if you do the really quick math, out of $2.7 million, we got about, I think it worked out to $320,000 that we could actually put in the classroom. We took our $320,000 and hired some nurses and some drug and alcohol counselors and a new teacher at Dry Creek to split up a 4th grade class that had over 30 kids in each class. Our money disappeared pretty quickly. Bonds, levies, things, something's going to happen. We just allocated $1 million out of our reserve budget to move into our capital budget to fix some roofs and some things that just absolutely had to be fixed. There are buildings in our system that need to be replaced. We have definite issues at the high school. We have issues at Franklin. We have issues at Hamilton that are bordering on health and safety issues, and they're going to have to be addressed some way, whether it's a new facility or through a major remodel or something. I don't know what the new board's going to do. The setting board right now, when we got the message that we lost, we only got 48% of the vote for the high school renovation, which was $98 million. Just so you know, that $98 million project that was on the bond is now $113 million. Just to let you know what happened because of that. With the new interest rates, as they're probably going to decline, it's going to get more expensive. Now, having said that, I don't think you'll see a new high school bond from the board. The people of Port Angeles pretty much said we're not going to do that.
But let's follow up on that. The high school is supposed to be in horrible condition. That's why we were looking at it. Just because it's failed doesn't mean that the high school is in any better condition. So I guess my question to you would be, how can you make such a case for a new high school and then just, in a sense, drop it? That's what I heard you say.
Well, I don't think you're going to hear it. I don't think you're going to see it dropped. I think you'll see radically change. Let me explain a couple of things. First off, I don't know if you all know the process that went through on the recommendation to get put the high school on the ballot. There was a committee formed here in town. There were 60 members on that committee that assessed the way we have our school structured. We're currently at K6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 in the high school. They came back with a new structure for us, and they want to go to a K5, a 6, 7, 8 middle school, and a 9, 10, 11, 12 high school. It's a model I happen to prefer. I prefer the K5 and then the 6, 7, 8 middle school for a whole variety of reasons, most of which are related to money, because I don't have to split up music teachers and send them to 5 different elementary schools because they can do strings. I can just send them to one place and leave them there, and it's a whole lot cheaper than moving them around. But circumstances have changed since that committee met 3 years ago. We currently have the biggest spike in elementary enrollment that this district's had in how many years, ladies? 20 years, something like that. We're currently 84 kids over what we had budgeted for in our elementaries. Our elementaries are busting at the seams. Now, your answer, the priorities are going to change. The current setting board, we publicly said we're not going to do anything with facilities until the new board is seated. So we know, we're not going to put people in a spot where they have to back up something maybe they don't believe in. So the new board's going to have these same conversations in the same meeting. It'll be a while. It'll take a year or more to analyze where they need to go. Folks, we may open Fairview again.
Where are we with Fairview?
Fairview's on the market to be sold right now. We don't currently have an active, since the marijuana guy went away,
Yeah.
we don't have an active offer on the table. It's just sitting there, and we're paying about $25,000 a year in maintenance to keep it there.
Is there anybody interested at all in it?
Yeah, we have a group that has been talking to us.
Good.
That we're excited about, but maybe we don't want to do that.
How about Monroe? Which of the two is more likely to be opened if you had to
Fairview.
open another one?
The problem with Monroe, the mediation in Monroe is full of asbestos. Yeah. And it's encapsulated into the walls. Somebody 25 years ago got some brilliant idea that if you have asbestos pipes up in the wall, if you put a false ceiling in front of it, they go away. Well, they don't go away, folks, let me tell you. They get way more expensive to mediate. I think the last number I heard to take the asbestos out of Monroe and do that mediation was somewhere close to $1 million. That's why we haven't moved on it. It's silly money. The building should be tore down and all that mediation work done. There's not enough money to do that. We're not going to waste the money doing it. We currently use the building for part of the building where there's no asbestos for storage, and the rest of it just sits there and gets broken windows every once in a while.
I think, Bill, you had a question?
What's going to happen with vocational training?
Well, we're going to salvage absolutely as much of it as humanly possible and still get our kids through high school. I wish I had an answer, or cut the right answer that I know is going to work, because I don't know what's going to work. The State Board of Education, when they passed the new graduation requirements, my personal opinion was they were only thinking about kids that were going to college. If you look at the standards, they're all based around college entrance tests and what you need to get into college. A big portion of our kids don't. So we're gonna have to work around it. The cross-crediting is the first step. We have a skill center sitting out here that we can potentially use for some vocational training that intertwines with the high school level. But I don't have a set answer yet. The state of Washington doesn't have a set answer. They know this is a problem. OSPI is working on a State Board of Education after they created the problem, figured out, hey, we got a problem, we need to fix this, and there's a lot of people trying to figure it out. I don't think anybody has an answer yet.
But that'd be a follow-up too. So you really get a sense that this is a statewide concern and there may be a political pressure coming on to put some type of fix, and I guess at the same time, This makes logical sense. Many things in the trades are relating to math and science. Is there a way to bump that half credit to full credits? Is there allies around the state to help you do that?
There's a pretty strong contingent of vocational people, mostly around the unions, pipe fitter, union plumbing, electrical, that are trying really very, very hard to get these standards eased for vocational. I personally would love to see us go to a 2 diploma system. I would love to see us go to a vocational diploma and a academic diploma. Virtually every country in the world has that setup except the United States. We've got tunnel vision. Everybody's going to fit in the same cube and everybody's going to do the same thing. It's not what happens. But we don't, we get in the way of the kids that want to go into vocational in giving all of the kids that are going academic all the resources. It's a tough problem. It's like comparing. Oh, I don't know. Sunday there was a comparison. They compared our schools to South Korea. I almost throw up when people do that. People talk about our schools being inferior to schools across the world. Folks, I'm here to tell you, we have the best schools in the world. There is no place in the world that has better education than the United States. I don't care what tests say, because test scores, when you compare us against countries like Denmark, Germany, Japan, South Korea, you're not comparing apples to apples, folks. You've got grapefruits and little tangerines over here. Because we're getting compared against the absolute best in every one of those countries. In Denmark, for instance, which I believe there was a Danish superintendent here one day. He and I had a very interesting conversation. They don't deal with special ed. 15.7% of your students are in special ed. They don't deal with any of that, so they don't get testing. Okay, they don't have 9 languages like you have in your high school. They have 2. You either speak Danish or starts with an S, or some other language. But you have to speak Danish to go to school there. You can speak the other language, but you have to speak Danish. You don't have to speak English to go to one of our schools. And guess who has to make exceptions for you? We do. The schools do. If you only speak Russian, I got to find somebody that speaks Russian so they can walk around with you all day long, so you can get an education in the United States. Yeah. So you want to compare our system to some other world system? Make them do what we do. Make them go down and have 2.7% of their kids in foster care. Have 15.4% or 5%, wherever we're at right now, in special ed. Have 4.7% of them have a 504 program where they require special help. Have them sitting in a classroom in a feeding tube and have to have 3 people with them every day. That doesn't happen any place but the United States, folks. And I don't care what you say, that makes us the best. People come to our country for higher education. If you look at our high school, our colleges right now, they're flooded with people from Thailand, Japan, China, all over the world. You know why they're here? They weren't the top 5% in their country that could go to their universities. They're the next 5%, they're the next 10%. And they're coming here because they want our educational system. So I get a little testy when people tell us that we're not doing a good job. So,
Anyone else? Another question? Sherry.
The DNR trust lands are set up so that the beneficiaries will receive the funds from harvesting the trees. The last 10 years we've been short our share of those contracts. Tell me how that's affected the schools, how much, because you're talking about a shortage of funds, so how has that affected our school budget?
it hasn't at all, which sounds a little bit amazing. But here's what happens with state, or up until this year. This year we won. So there's some legislation I'll tell you about that we won. Up until this year, if we got $1 from the state trust lands, our allocation from the state of Washington was cut $1. We actually got $600,000 last year in June or whatever it was from the state trust lands. Our July allocation from the state of Washington was cut by $600,000. It's been a non-number for us. It comes in and goes out, so it really hasn't helped us. Legislation just changed last year, and Port Angeles School District or 2 years ago. Excuse me.
Well, it's only for 2 years.
I have my little proofing board over here.
For the next 2 years.
Yeah, for the next 2 years, we actually get to keep the money. We don't have to give it back.
For the next 2 years.
For the next 2 years, we get to keep the money, which last year would have been $600,000. So we get to keep the money. Hopefully, the legislation is going to change where we always get to keep the money. Hopefully, the state trust lands are going to become managed like they are in every other state and union and actually show a profit. We're one of the few states that have state trust lands that lose money. I don't know how you lose money.
That was the criticism during the discussion for the school bond, that you're not receiving your fair share of the trust fund's lands and money, and so that's being put in the back of the taxpayers. That was actually the importance of the school bond.
Yeah.
We're arguing that, so it's good to know.
Yeah, one of the arguments that happened, and there was several arguments when the bond was running. There was a lot of it was just misinformation. In order to get most of the state trust land money, traditionally has gone to fund new schools. It actually goes into the capital budget at the state level, which is then distributed across the state in the form of matching funds for schools. There was a big intent or big ruckus that the school board wasn't including that matching fund in our budget. Let me tell you, you cannot budget for things you don't know you're going to get. Very, very rarely in the last 10 years has the legislature funded the capital fund with enough money to cover all of the requests people send in. They just don't. So you can send in a request for $20 million, you might get 5. You might get 20. You don't know what you're going to get. But you can't go out and build a school and make commitments to suppliers and contractors and the public on what you might get. It's great if you did it. And then you can pay off debt, or you could use it to offset some frilly things. Maybe you want better technology and stuff like that in your school. State trust lands is a real sore subject. The Washington State School Directors Association has a whole committee on state trust lands and the arguments that we've been going against them for several years. Ms. Kelly over here happens to sit on that state board of trust lands, and it's a pain. It's a poor system. It's a very poor financing system for schools.
Another question.
So I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate the work of everyone. Tell us how much you're paid for your work.
How much we're paying?
Yes.
Well, it cost me about $3,200 last year to be on the board.
Okay. And I think everyone needs to know that.
Yeah.
Because
We,
we really appreciate the time and effort the school board members put in.
I'm not going to speak for Cindy and Sarah. They're both here, and they can tell you the hours they put in. I currently chair the policy committee and the fiduciary committee and the Safe Schools committee. Between those three committees and regular board meetings and different things that we are required to attend to, I probably average 20 hours a week of my time. I use all of my vacation time, all my sick time, all my personal time off from my job in school functions. Once a year we go to a retreat, school board retreat. Unlike most boards where they go to really nice places, we go to the skill center. They bring us a really bad sandwich and some coffee.
Made by kids.
Yeah, and lock us in a room and tell us to come out with some kind of continuous improvement plan that's really good for kids. We have our own personal development training. I was really blessed 2 years ago. I was selected by the Washington State School Directors Association to attend their school called Leadership WASDA. Leadership WASDA is centered around 14 people a year. It's a year-long training. I drove to Olympia every other week for a year to take that training, and they cover everything from diversity issues to finance to how to be a better board member. I graduated, I made my presentation to the rest of the school boards in the state of Washington. And anyway, like I say, I'm really blessed that I got to go. I also got to pay for it, so, or most of it. So,
And to Sherry's point, that's correct, right? Currently, no school board members are taking a draw.
no, we haven't. I can't remember the last school board director that actually took the money. We're allowed, $50 a meeting, up to $4,800 a year. I have never met a school board member that's taken the money.
Yeah, which is a great dedication.
Yeah, we.
In our district.
In our district, there are districts that are actually fully funded and paid situations, but.
President Edna, and then we'll go to
Everybody
George.
else quit asking questions, so I get to. So Lonnie, in the height of the shooting last week, how safe are we? Sorry, I know it's a hard question, but
How safe are we? We're as safe as the next nutcase with a gun.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's how safe we are. We've done things in our school, and I went on record Sunday about this. We have things in place in our school I will not talk about in public because they're in place to protect our kids. I guess it's one of those things you have to trust in folks. We've been working on this diligently for years. I'll tell you some of the things that we have done that are coming to the forefront. We just finished rekeying all our schools, so we have control of one entrance. You have to have there's a card reader entrance now into each school. All the other doors can be permanently shut and locked, and that will be the only entrance into the door. That's one of the steps that we started. We've been putting in security cameras at all our schools. Virtually every school entrance has a camera. You may not see them, but they're there. They're being recorded, and hopefully someday we're going to have enough money to actually have them monitored 24 during the school day. They do get monitored periodically. So there are days when there are people there monitoring the entrance into the building. There are days when there aren't. So that's some of the stuff we've done. With this type of schools we have, particularly Port Angeles High School is extremely vulnerable to a single psycho shooter. If you get on the roof of one of the buildings at the high school, you can pretty much cover the whole campus with a gun.
But now there's a Port Angeles police officer that's assigned to the school as well.
We have a community resource officer that's on staff at the high school all the time. He's there to help. But quite honestly, there's 11 buildings on that campus. He can only be in one of them. And most of the time, the young people that are in the school, they know where he's at. They know what buildings he happens to be in that day or where he happens to be patrolling. They're as safe as we can make them. I mean, they're literally, folks, they're safe as the next nutcase with a gun. And that's, I'm a Second Amendment person. I believe everybody should be able to own a gun. But folks, we let some really nutty people own guns. And those people need to be shut down.
PDN has a question.
Yes. Back to the issues at the high school, Core 24. Earlier there was some talk that with the new science standards, there are not enough science classrooms to serve the kids. That literally they cannot graduate with the number of classrooms. Is there a plan in place at this point?
The exact problem is lab space. It's not necessarily classroom space, but it is lab space. And yes, we're working on a problem, on another one of our problems to expand our lab space. The new requirements are creating issues all the way across the district, all the way across the state of Washington. I find it extremely interesting that the State Board of Education can pass things like this, and you folks don't elect any of them. They're all appointed by the governor or off of some other committee. Not one of these people do you control or have any say-so over. And it absolutely drives me nuts if they're making policy.
George.
Lonnie, there were actually two issues in front of the voters. One was, of course, the bond, which was received fewer than half the votes. But what is your interpretation of the M&O levy, which passed by 62 plus?
Well, You know, I had actually kind of forgot about the M&O levy. And I want people to understand what happened when, you know, normally we bring a 4-year levy to you. You'll notice this year, last year, we brought you a 2-year levy. We brought you a 2-year levy because we didn't know what was going to happen with the McClary issue. If in fact we get more money and we don't need that levy money, as you know, do need as much of it. You know, our intent was that we'd go for 2 years, find out what McClary is going to do, and then reassess what the levy is going to be in, you know, for the next 2 years, instead of putting a 4-year levy out there that's worth roughly $8 million a year. You know, maybe we'll get $8 million for 2 years. Maybe we only need 6. It's not the intent of the board or the school district to suck all the money out of the community. I mean, that does us absolutely no good. Without a vibrant community, without people working, without people having good paying jobs, all you do is compound our job. I'll explain a little bit of what happened. What happened 2 years ago, or the last budget cycle. In order to put more money in the schools and make themselves look good, our legislature gutted, and I mean gutted like a fish, our mental health programs. They took all the money that was going to help families that were vulnerable and in need and had mental issues, and dumped it in the schools because it made them look good. What it did was it dumped all those mental health issues right in the school's lap, and we were not prepared to take care of it. We have more mental and behavioral issues in our schools right now than we've ever had in the history of the schools, or at least Port Angeles schools. And it's a direct result of the money that was cut from the mental DSHS and that group of people on this side and moved over to the schools. So there's a balance in there. But as far as the levy goes, levies were intended to pay, you know, for band and sports and the extras. We use our levies like everybody else does for what it costs to run the schools. You know, part of the McClary decision is the legislature has to adequately fund schools so that local districts don't have to take money out of their local levy for basic ed. I don't know of a district in the state of Washington that doesn't take money out of their local levy for basic ed right now.
Tag team back here.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah, please.
Lonnie, could you address the issue of how the voters could soundly defeat the bond issue, but overwhelmingly approve the M&O?
That's really pretty simple. People in Port Angeles believe in their schools. They genuinely do, and they generally support the school district on a daily basis. We have hundreds of volunteers in our schools every day. We have people that support us in a whole range of ways. The high school was too much money in a community. They felt was too much money in a community that quite honestly got 7.5% or 8% unemployment rate. We have people that are underpaid for the jobs they're doing. You know, it was strictly a pushback from them saying, "Hey, you know, we don't have it." I'm not unhappy with them for their honesty. They back the schools day in and day out. $98 million is a lot of money, folks. I don't care who you are, unless you're the United States government, and then $98 million is what you wasted yesterday, or what you spent protecting the president with all those guys with guns around him. The people of Port Angeles want value for their money. There was a couple of other issues. Biggest issue I heard about why people voted, they didn't vote for the high school. They didn't like the picture of the high school. They thought it was too fancy. You know, it was a conceptual drawing. You know, we didn't know what it was going to look like. That was just a drawing that they made. And in hindsight, the next one's going to look like a bunker. You know, it's going to be a square box, because that seems to be what turned people most negative was the picture of the school. So thank you.
I'd like to get your opinion on what you would think of instituting a stop and frisk policy on all school properties.
Before or after the ACLU sued us?
It's constitutional according to the Supreme Court.
I know. You know, I've never thought about it, because I guess I look at the population of Port Angeles and the people that live here, damn it, I don't want to get like that.
We got a police officer there on school
Yes, we
grounds.
do.
His job is to try and prevent any violence like we've seen once a week
Yeah.
through the country. And I think that might be a good way to approach it. We can change all the gun laws we want. We can wind up just like Chicago. It doesn't do a damn bit of good.
Yeah.
You gotta take some physical action, and that means we have an observant police officer on school grounds who can say, well, that kid he doesn't look right. Let me talk to you a minute, son.
You know, there's merit in what you're saying. There really is. But I would much rather see our staff and our counselors and our people inside our schools know the students well enough. Have that relationship with each one of the students to know when a student's in trouble. And folks, you can tell.
Well.
Trust me, I can walk to the high school today and point out 6 kids that are having problems right now. They're having problems at home, they're having problems with their girlfriend, they're having problems with any wide variety of things. It shows if you know the kids. Building those relationships between the teachers and the staff with the students will eliminate 99.9% of the issues you're seeing nationally in schools.
That's right.
And if we don't nurture those type of relationships with students and staff, all the frisking in the world is not going to stop a kid from coming in and doing something silly. You know, we've suffered through, I think, three different suicides in the district since I've been in office. Every one of those kids could have been helped. Every one of those kids deserved to be helped, and we missed it. We didn't do it. This community didn't do it. You want to end violence in your schools? End the discrimination. Make it so I don't need Lincoln High School. There's a challenge for you folks. Make it so I don't need Lincoln. Make it so every kid that goes to Lincoln can feel safe and secure at the high school and not be called faggot and gay and queer. Make it so he can go there and be safe. Make it so the girl with a really low self-esteem doesn't give her body away to the football team because she thinks it's going to make her more popular. And then she gets pregnant, and then she's a whole bunch of other names. And where's she at now? She's at Lincoln because people accept her there. There's the problem you have, folks. You have a social problem. We have a school problem. We need our kids to feel safe, secure, and we need to help them get there. Because quite honestly, most of their parents aren't. We have a whole generation of kids being raised by themselves. Mom and dad are on meth or heroin or unemployed and violent and mean. We have kids that miss 30, 40 days of school a year because they don't want to come to school because they're bruised up because dad beat the hell out of them. There's the reality of what we're faced with day in and day out. You know, you want to do something? Fix that. Fix all those social issues, and you'll never have a shooting in a school again.
Lonnie, does classrooms start in the morning? Is the policy to have the flag salute in every classroom?
Yes. If I had my way, we'd do prayer, but we didn't want to get to
But
that.
we do pledge the
We
allegiance.
do the flag salute.
It's state law.
It is a state law.
It's a state law.
Yeah. And honestly, if I had my way, we'd have prayer. So, if you think back to when we were all, everybody in this room qualifies, when we were in school, we didn't have mass shootings. Might have fist fights once in a while. I can remember going to high school, in my high school, with my shotgun up over the back of the door because we were going pheasant hunting right after school. You don't see that anymore. You can't do that. But then, you know, we had a whole different way of looking at things back then. Yeah. So,
Well, before we ask Lonnie for closing statements, I think we've had a very candid and honest conversation here. Let's give him a hand. And with that said, would you like to take a minute or two and ask for a vote? Go back to your campaign and.
I found that candid and truthful doesn't necessarily get you votes. And quite honestly, I'd rather be. It's a whole lot easier for me to sleep at night, and because I told you what I believe, instead of trying to remember what I told this group or told that group, because I'm getting old and my memory's just not what it used to be, folks. We have some great schools here. We have a lot of work coming up. We have some really, really talented young people in our district that deserve our best. I'd like to finish my job. I've had 8 years and we've made major strides, and we've made some major improvements in 8 years. And they're not all mine. I mean, the current setting board has done some phenomenal work. They've done some really hard work that has made them not very popular at times. They've made the right choices. And I hope when you vote this year, you analyze each person that's running and why they're running and what can they bring to this board to help them continue the work that they're doing. I hope you vote for me. If you don't, I'll understand, and I'll actually get most of my life back. But I haven't grown tired of the job yet. I don't want to give up on our youth. I don't want to give up on our schools. And hopefully you'll vote for me. So, thank you.
Great, thank you.